Hey everybody, it's me, Brental Cakes. So as some of you know, I teach a summer youth program called Let's Make It Musical, where I teach kids how to write lyrics and music, and we put on a show. It's super fun. I get a lot of questions about how to write lyrics, and I can't really, critique and read every single lyric I get. So I decided to start a series where I actually teach everyone who's interested the basics of lyric writing. So if you're interested in becoming a better lyricist, strap in, and if not, stick around anyway. You might learn something.
Lyrics 101 with brentalfloss.
First, what makes a lyric a lyric? What differentiates it from a poem? Well, the obvious answer is music. But at the heart of it, it's about time. You can read a poem at any pace you want. You can read a part of it over and over again and soak in what the author meant. Poets can be really vague or ambiguous about the meaning and kind of make it your job to figure out what they're trying to say. But a lyricist is different. Lyrics are a temporal art form, and that means they're related to time. So whatever the speed of the music is, that's the speed at which the information in the lyric has to be received by the listener. A good lyric is one that can be understood by the listener the first time they hear it, and it must be understood immediately so that the listener doesn't kind of get hung up like, what did that mean, and miss the next part. So in this series, I'm going to focus on 3 different styles of lyric writing: stage, radio, and hip-hop. These categories may seem a little arbitrary, but they all kind of have different rules about rhyme, storytelling, and structure. So my training, as some of you know, is writing for the musical theater stage. And of the 3 styles, I would argue that it requires the most discipline. So we're going to start there. The first exercise is going to be done from the standpoint of a theater lyric. One thing to keep in mind here: no teacher of lyrics ever follows their own advice 100% of the time. I've written some imperfect rhymes and fudged a bit here and there with some of my YouTube work as well as my musical theater stuff. But as a teacher, I'm working from the philosophy of you have to master the rules first before you know how to break them and bend them. So, okay, first let's take a look at the basics of lyric writing. A perfect lyric will have equally brilliant content and form. In this context, content means what your song is about, and kind of intangible things like wit and significance and charm. Form is like the craft, the structure, the design. So think of a song like you're making something in the kitchen, let's say a sandwich. What's the form of a sandwich? Well, it's pretty simple. Bread, something in the middle. If you have 2 slices of bread with something in the middle, you've mastered the form of a sandwich. Content is turkey, avocado, Swiss cheese, bacon, mayonnaise on lightly toasted, buttered white bread. I'll be right back. Okay. So another example of form and structure is a knock-knock joke. Let's say you need to write a knock-knock joke. The form is simple. Knock knock. Who's there? Blank. Blank who? Punchline. The content is what you actually fill in the blanks with. It's the negotiable part of the thing. In songwriting, there are a few tried and true forms with a lot of variations. But again, I want you to learn the pure form first, and then you can learn to vary it. The first form I want you to learn is called AABA, but I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let's get down to the actual nitty-gritty of writing a lyric. When you choose to write a lyric, you have to ask yourself, what's it about? It's possible to write a lyric where you don't know what it's about, and maybe someone could possibly listen to that lyric and think they get it, but that's not really the kind of lyrics I'm trying to teach you here. So I'm going to start from a standpoint of structure, which is just another word for form. AABA is one of the oldest song forms. It's rarely used on the radio today, but for a long time, it was the standard for popular music, and it's still used all over the Broadway stage. Here's a super basic breakdown of how AABA song form works. First A, I love you. Second A, I love you. B, I hate you. Third A, because I love you. Okay, so let's look at it more closely. The first A establishes an idea, a notion. The second A follows the form of the first A, but varies it, intensifies it, or elaborates on it. The B is a departure from the A in both content and form. Sometimes this is called the release, and it serves the same purpose as what you'd call a bridge in a verse-chorus song. A lot of times, a good B will make it so that when you come back around to the A has more significance. It's a hard thing to describe in the abstract, but you kind of know it when you see it. So then the last A is a reiteration of the first two A's, but usually in a new way that gives the song some closure, often wraps it around, kind of explaining something we didn't know before. An important concept of the AABA song form is the hook. It's usually the most memorable part of the song. It's generally repeated in every A, and while it can come at the beginning of the A, like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, it usually comes at the end. Here's an example of a very simple AABA song. The song is What a Wonderful World, popularized by Louis Armstrong, and the first A goes like this.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Okay, so that's the first A, right? We have a basic idea. The singer is setting up the idea that he's perceiving things around him and that they make him appreciate how great the world is. Notice the hook, like I said, is at the end of the A. It's
What a wonderful world.
and a lot of times the hook is also the title of the song, like in this case. Not always, but anyway, on to the second A.
I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Okay, so the tune is essentially the same, which is how you know it's another A and not a B. In song structure, each letter represents one piece of musical material. Every chunk or stanza with the same letter essentially has the same music. So back to Louis. He's still perceiving things in the second A. He's paralleling that first A in that way. Like I said, he's elaborating on the idea of the first A and varying it, continuing to see things in the world and appreciating them. You'll notice he repeats the hook. Which is What a Wonderful World. Now we're going to totally depart from the musical material he's established and go to a whole new melody line for the B. You ready?
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, they're also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you.
Okay, so that's our B. And we've departed from the music and the structure of the A's. You'll notice it doesn't start with an I see like the first two did, and unlike the first two A's, he actually has some insight into a situation rather than just perceiving things on a surface level. That's just an example of how an A and a B kind of necessarily have to differ. All right, we've done our first two A's and a B. Now back to the final A.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the first thing to comment on here is that the length of this A is different than the first two. This is what we call a prime chunk, or a prime stanza, and if you're just doing the basic letter system, you put a little apostrophe to indicate that it is prime. In this case, it's longer because, you know, he adds another What a Wonderful World and then ooh yeah at the end. And it's very, very common for the last A in an AABA to be prime. Now this is kind of risky because you guys are kind of a guinea pig class of this series, but my plan is to take lyrics you've written and use them to continue teaching. I purposely didn't get into the nuts and bolts of scansion, prosody, and other technical stuff about the actual writing of the words and phrases in a lyric. I'll save that for a little bit later on in the series. So here is your first assignment. Write a song in AABA form. I want you to start from a place of discipline. Master the rules first, then learn to bend them. In this assignment, every rhyme will need to be a perfect rhyme. Hand, band. Not hand, can, for instance. Even though it's easy to get away with those kind of rhymes, I want you to learn how to do it with 100% perfect rhymes first. So, your assignment. Write an AABA song. Only use perfect rhymes. Make sure to repeat the hook either at the beginning or the end of each A. Make sure the A's have similar scan, which means you could sing the same music under all of them, even though each will have different words. And finally, just to give you a starting point, your song must include the word rock. Interpret that as you will. Send your completed lyrics to my YouTube inbox. I may not respond to every single one, but I will use some of your submissions as teaching material in the future videos. So, thanks for listening. Happy lyric writing.